Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how art can be expressive. And we're going to be doing this with this book named Swatch by Julia Denos. Okay, so let's start. In a place where colors ran wild, there lived a girl who was wilder still. Here's the art on the page. I really love how the artist is able to make everything so vibrant and colorful, and the paint just has so much energy to it. So let's go on to the next page here. Her name was Swatch, and she was a color tamer. She was small, but she was not afraid. And another, big page right here that I just, there's so much going on with the colors and how they move throughout each other. And I think it looks really great. We're going to be talking about that soon. Swatch had never thought of capturing a color until the day that she lured just laid blue straight from its nest and into a jam jar. Stay, Swatch said, and the color stayed. How beautiful it looked behind glass. You could use a friend, she said to Blue. And now, okay, so I want to talk about this page a little bit. You see that she's in some like forest or jungle, but you might notice something maybe about the colors that you find interesting or different from what we would expect from a jungle. And then, talk to the kids about it a bit. Maybe they end up saying like, oh, well, like they're using blue for it, which I think is really interesting. And I'm wondering maybe if one or two of them would pick up on that. Um, but I think it's really interesting because it's showing this level of expression on how Swatch or even the artist sees, the world or wants to show their world and express that with a different color than usual. Rumble Tumble Pink rolled through the sky on the heels of outgoing thunderstorms. When she called them by name, they would come to her because Swatch loved color and color loved Swatch back. This is another great page. So here's another one where I would probably talk to the kids and just say like, "Hey, what kind of interests you about this? Like, would you normally associate pink with a thunderstorm?" And, there's a lot of like that one's especially interesting to me because it's such a bright and happy color and something that could be seen as a little more like scary or frightening. And both Swatch and the artist once again are really embracing that and finding beauty in it and expressing that through their color usage. Morning came and there it was, fast fading and fierce, the king of all yellows blooming in the sidewalk crack. Swatch was ready. At last, the yellowest yellow would be hers. Suddenly, she heard a small sound. Said the yellowest yellow. What are you doing? Swatch had never asked if a color wanted taming. Yellowest yellow, she asked politely. Would you like to climb in this jar? You could sit on a shelf right next to blue. You can make green together all day long if you wanted. But yellow, knowing that was no way to live, said, no thank you. And Swatch, who could have scooped it up anyways, said, okay. And given that small but kindly allowance, you can see the yellowest yellow is actually moving off the page here, kind of showing what's coming next. Now, for the sake of the video presentation, I'm going to end the story here. I don't want it dragging on for too long. But what ends up happening is that Swatch allows the yellowest yellow to be free, along with all of her other colors. And you can kind of see that here with, whoops, backwards. And you can kind of see that here with how it bursts out from her house and from that little dandelion in the bottom corner and flies up all around. And it has so much like movement and energy to it. I love the way that like the fur is rendered on the creature in like this little portion. Not sure if you can see my mouse. Um, but I think this could be a time that maybe I talk to the kids and just say like, oh, so something else really interesting is how, this is a still image that we're looking at, but there's a lot of movement. Like you can kind of see how it's like moving out from the flower and flying out into the distance. And I think that, that way that the artist captures movement is really interesting and something else that I could probably talk to the kids about and see if they can kind of see what's going on that makes it feel that way, coming down like the spiraling motion and the fur kind of flying off of it, or even these little patterns on the left over by the words that almost look like butterflies kind of flying with the creature. Um, but this is also just a great page with a lot of very like fun to read words, and then, together they create a masterpiece. And it does actually say that on the page as well. It builds up to it better in the, book when I'm not summarizing, but I really do love this page and how Swatch is a little smaller than she's been on all the other pages. So the colors really have a room to express themselves with her in a way, where it's not just about her own individual artistic expression, but the expression of the paint as well. Okay, so let's talk about expression. How do you express yourself? There's, a bunch of different ways that we express ourselves as people. So what stands out to you specifically? And, I'd ask the kids this, and some of the answers I could expect hearing would be through our emotions. Um, we have different emotions and expressions, and that kind of word correlation could come through. Maybe through the way that we talk. We all use different ways of saying things, different people from different cultures and different communities all have different words they use and ways that they go about speaking. In the way that we dress as well, which I have this concept art on the left from Swatch, created by Julia Denos. And, she's just wearing this really crazy, very colorful outfit. And that's like very, self-expression focused in dressing a way that may not be conventional, but something that you yourself appreciate. And lastly, with our art, which is what we're going to be talking about today and working on with our upcoming project. But first, let's talk about some artists. And I'm actually going to say this part of the presentation. J.M.W. Turner does have some more intense work. I know his most popular one is, I think it was called Slave Ship. And it is like a ship in the distance that's like being wrecked by waves and storms. And it's like, he has a lot of work that is on the more intense side, but he also has a lot that are just these gorgeous, like, landscapes and cities, and the light is so powerful and overwhelming. And I feel like it really works with both the book and the topics that I'm going to be talking about. So I would definitely want to think about it a little bit more or talk to someone about including JMW Turner for like a younger audience. Because even though I wouldn't be showing the more intense work, he does have some stuff that is like, very, I guess, just intense, like lots of crashing waves and explosions and thunderstorms and all of that. But today, for the kids, we're going to be appreciating a lot of his more soft and beautiful works. Um, so the first one, or at least visibly soft and beautiful. I'm sure some of them have some more upsetting meanings behind them. But yeah, so that is a self-portrait of J.M.W. Turner on the left. And you can see some of his work as well. So he was an artist from 1775 to 1851. And some of his paintings are just, they stand out so much because of their use of color and lighting. When we think of colors, and coloring things in, maybe we think of like a coloring book or, coloring an art that we make. And a lot of the time, you want to stay inside the lines and make it so things all can stand out. But if you look at his art, the one in the middle is so colorful and bright, but it's hard to tell what it is at first. And if you really look close, you can kind of see there's, this skyline of a city in the background or some sort of maybe a marina with boats on it in the foreground in that brown color, which, it's kind of left up to interpretation what some of these things are. And it's something that maybe he would only understand the full meaning of. And it's up to you to figure out what his self-expression is with this art and what he's trying to say with it. And Regulus on the left, or not on the left, on the right, Regulus on the right, uh, is also really beautiful with, if you look at the water, which you might not even think is water at first, maybe it looks like a road with all the like city houses on the right. But no, yeah, so it's water and there's boats in it and there's people on the boats and you can see the light from that, maybe a sunset or just a really bright day is so overwhelming that you can't even see some of the buildings. And he's really, I guess, coloring outside the lines in a way. He's letting that light wash out the whole scene in a way that's very unique to him, but also, very expressive and unique and very powerful in how it uses its colors. And as our modern artist, we have Blanca Alvarez, who is a, current working artist. Some of her most recent work is from the last few years, and she works mostly in watercolor. And I just love how her work looks. It's so bright and vibrant, and it uses like this watercolor in a way where she's not afraid for it to splotch around and get messy and spread into other colors. So, maybe when we're working on our art projects, after learning about these artists, you can really think about how you can let the color express itself along with you. And not just trying to control it, but trying to let it be free and do what it wants to do. And now let's make some art. So we're going to be doing a project where we are drawing with free lines. So just like Swatch, we'll be learning to let our colors be free. Watercolor won't go over crayon lines. So if you ever draw a line with a crayon, the wax that the crayons make will make it so that if you paint with watercolor, it like holds it in, kind of like a wall. But what we want to do is, control the paint in a way, but we never want to keep it fully contained. Like Swatch was putting them in jars, but once she let them out of the jars, they were able to be free and expressive. So what we're going to do is never close a shape. And that may sound weird at first, but if you look at our little reference down here, you see there's the circle on the left is completely closed. If you were in that and that was like a house, you'd never be able to escape it because there's no openings anywhere. The one on the right, however, with the check mark, has an opening to it. And there's a way that you would be able to get out, or almost like a cup full of water. The water could spill out from that opening where it wouldn't be able to in the other one. So when we're making our lines, and you can see it in my reference, I get pretty close sometimes to closing off a shape, but I never close it. There's always somewhere for the watercolor to go to get out. And we're going to be making a masterpiece of our own because once the crayons are all finished drawing our lines, we're going to be switching over to watercolor. And, you're just going to keep painting through, cover your artwork, really express yourself with the lines and the movement of it and the colors that you choose. And, if the watercolor ends up going outside the lines or even over one of the crayon markings, that's okay because we're letting it be free. So if that happens, don't worry about it being a mistake or something you need to fix because that's just part of the art process. And, you can take that and work with it, keep going with it. When I was making this, I'll move on to the, final piece here. When I was making mine, I had a few times that the color spilled out in a way that I didn't originally intend, but I worked with it and I kept kind of carrying the color around and bringing it in and blending it with other colors, and I ended up really liking the results. So when you're working on your own project, make sure you think of that as well. And yeah, well, let's get started. And yeah, so that would be pretty much how I handle that process. Um, yeah, we would cover the book, go into talking about artists, what expression is. And after the kids all finished their artwork, I would love to do like a sharing where we kind of go around and, people can show off their works. And I'll really do my best to make sure that it's lifted up as much as I can so the kids can really feel inspired and motivated and proud of their work. Because something big to me is that even if you don't want to pursue being an artist, you should still be able to do art and make art because it's fun and therapeutic. And I really want to make sure that even kids in my class who are not interested in becoming an artist can feel proud of their work and happy with what they did and like they were able to express themselves and maybe even want to do something like this again.